Good morning, world. Welcome to the Champions Coffee podcast, where every week we have coffee with an education professional who is out there on the front lines championing students to be all that they can be. I'm your host, Ben Hallett, and I am the co-founder and CEO of Vygo. For those of you who don't know about us, Vygo is a student support platform that helps educators connect their students to their champions. And Vygo uses the word champion for all of the in-house mentors, tutors, counselors, advisors, all of these people that champion students. And at Vygo, we really believe in, thanks for the coffee, Sam. At Vygo, we really believe in celebrating the professionals who make all of these support services tick and make them happen and inspire them, which is why we're doing this podcast. And today, I'm very excited for today's guest, Georgia Baker, out of the University of Queensland and the EAIT faculty, which is the Engineering, Architecture and IT faculty, which is very close to my heart because that is the faculty which Vygo was actually born out of many moons ago. And now, so Georgia has worked in student support within the tertiary education sector for over 10 years. After graduating with a master's degree of international studies, she focused her career on international partnerships, student mobility, and international student support. She is currently the International Student Advisor for the Faculty of Engineering, Architecture, and Information Technology at the University of Queensland. Without further ado, welcome, Georgia.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you. Do you have a coffee?
I do. Well, I've got a cup of tea. I've already had coffee this morning, and if I had another, this would go downhill quickly.
As I said before, I've got two at the moment, but that's because one I just spilt everywhere all over the desk, but it's all out of you. So thanks so much for coming on board today. And I'd love to kick off with just maybe a little bit more information about yourself and the work that you do and where you fit into the education world.
Yeah, so I've been with the University of Queensland pretty much for about 10 years. I had a little bit of a break for a year or so in between, but I got both my degrees, my bachelor and my master's at UQ. And during my master's, I started working casually and have just fell into the wonderful community here and haven't really wanted to leave. And just started working in student support actually at the School of Medicine originally, working with international students. The School of Medicine at UQ has a really strong international cohort, predominantly of North Americans. So I started working in that space there, and it just gave me a really good fundamental understanding of how a cohort, whether it be international students or any cohort, can have a really unique set of needs, and along with that set of needs requires a unique set of support services available to them. And that really just that first experience and that first job just gave me that really good foundation and understanding of how crucial student support and targeted student support is for students.
And of course, 2020 has been really hard for all students, but I think particularly for international students. So I'm guessing your work's got even a whole lot level more important this year.
It has, yeah. It's interesting, sort of part of the reason, and I think this was probably the next question, but part of the reason I'm particularly passionate, I suppose, about international student support is when I was doing my bachelor's degree at UQ, I lived at one of the residential colleges, and we had quite a lot of international students come and do their semester abroad and stay at the college. And across my 3 years, I met a lot of study abroad students, one of whom is now one of my very best friends and another one who is now my husband. So the unique sort of needs of international students is close to my heart, but also that feeling of being away from home is very close to my heart, particularly in 2020. My in-laws and my my daughter's grandparents are halfway around the world, and that's a tricky feeling. So I feel particularly for international students at the moment who are either stuck over here or I think a lot of the times we feel like the world has become a really small space, and it has, but 2020 has highlighted really how big it is as well.
True, true. Well, that's something you and I have in common. At UQ, I also met my my wife and my best friend, who's the co-founder of Vygo, with me. So UQ, hats off.
Yeah.
More than a degree.
My very first day of college, the principal, it was the principal of the college, said, "You never know, this is more than a degree, more than an education. You never know, you could be sitting in the room with your future spouse." And while I wasn't just then, that whole experience certainly led me down that path.
True. What a interesting, maybe dangerous thing to say to a residential college. Yeah. All right. Okay. So, well, you've ticked off my second question, so thank you very much. And my third question: could you tell us a little bit more about the student support services or programs or initiatives that you're currently working on this year?
Yeah. So, my role at the moment in the faculty EAIT, we'll shorten it because it's such a mouthful.
Thank you.
Is really just international student support, and to me that encompasses a whole lot of things. Obviously, the academic success of our students is crucial and important to us, but I think our support space is so much more than that. It's making sure they have academic support and the tools that they need to succeed academically, but I think a whole lot of that is also about feeling connected to their institution and this faculty, and feeling like they belong to a community. And that's really what we're trying to encourage and foster here is a place where our international students feel supported, but feel like they belong and feel like they have connections as well. And, that's my focus because I believe in it, but it's also supported by research to say that students will be happier and more academically successful and more likely to retain if they feel supported and connected.
Yeah, so, and I think, you go.
We've got, quite a few international students in our faculty across our schools, and I think it's particularly important for us that that they feel that and that they don't feel sort of segregated, and that we've got our big group of international students and our big group of domestic students. We really want to make sure that there's a vision across our faculty that our students are just our students.
Yeah, definitely. And I think at a university that the size of UQ, it with that kind of volume, it means that it can be easy for groups, to stay within their groups, because there's so many of them that you don't even need to go outside of the group. You can find 30 people that are almost exactly like you and stay within that if you need to. So I think across the board, one of UQ's challenges is making sure that doesn't happen it happens, but also cross permeates as well.
And it's particularly challenging at the moment because our international students predominantly aren't here, particularly our students who have commenced this semester. Some of our semester one students are still here that commenced, but the vast majority of our semester two students are still abroad and they're studying remotely, essentially as external students. So creating ways for them to connect and interact with their peers, whether it be other international students or our domestic students, that really is one of the biggest challenges for this new COVID world we're living in, is to create student connectedness and opportunities for students to actually meet one another. And while that exists in an academic environment where we've got tutorials, an academic environment is there for a purpose. It's to discuss the coursework that students are studying. It's not necessarily designed for an opportunity to say, hey, hello, how are you? This is who I am. Are you finding this hard or that hard? So we're trying to create environments for that to happen with students.
Yeah, 100%. And I think one of our last guests, Matt from Griffith University, put it quite well, that the university is a very unique, once in a lifetime opportunity to find yourself, and that finding yourself, happens typically in all the extracurricular and things that happen outside the classroom. And with COVID, a lot of that's been shut down. And so we need to provide, new opportunities for that. And one of the things I really like about your team is I think how much you guys are listening to students, and I how much you're listening to students. So when you're considering new technologies, new programs and things like that, you're going actively out to students. You're getting, you're not just getting one opinion, you're getting lots of opinions. I think that's was a really cool thing that I saw about your unit that I think other people could be learning from.
I really believe that the only way you can know what students want and what students need is by asking them. And it's, to me, it's kind of that idea. It doesn't just apply to students, it applies everywhere, about having the right people in the room when you're making decisions for those people. You see it, historically, it's happened a lot with women. Decisions are made for and about women without women in the room. So I think it's a principle that can be applied across the board. And I don't want to create a program that is based on what I think will work. I want to create a program based on what the students that I'm presenting it to actually want and need. It's got to, you've got to meet in the middle.
100%. And that brought up a story in my mind of one of the very first releases of Vygo way back in the day. It had the chat functionality between students, but it didn't have we didn't have spell check on the chat, right. And we didn't think people needed it, so we didn't bother. But it tore down the app. Everyone was getting so angry with their misspelling, and I wish we had gotten a bit more feedback before that very first version was out. But anyway, okay. So, you've been involved in this space now for 10 years. What's been changing over the last couple of years? What's some of the new things you're seeing come through, perspectives, or on the student side, or on the staff side?
It's hard to answer that question without a COVID frame of mind. Because honestly, COVID has just changed everything. And the role I'm in right now, I started in November of last year. So I was sort of working in an international space, but not really student support before this in one of our schools. So I came into this role with a real focus on student support and had sort of 2 months to design and build a program and get everything together, and then COVID. So COVID. my perspective is just very coloured by that, and my recent experience in student support has really just been a focus on that, to be honest. But although I think that technology has obviously changed everything. 10 years ago, when I started at the School of Medicine working with international students there, the thought of having an app-based mentoring program for students to chat to, it wouldn't even have occurred to me, I don't think. I grew up on MSN Messenger, in high school, but the thought that would go into something I could implement in an educational program, I wouldn't have thought of it. We were emailing students. We had huge information sessions in auditoriums, and that was really how we interacted with our students, getting all of them there at once, having keynote speakers and having a PowerPoint presentation. And, that's utilized still, of course, but technology has allowed much more effective and immediate ways of engaging with students. And I'd say that's probably the biggest change.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm actually going to jump one question. Where do you see us going? Where do you see this space going? What's 3 years from now? What will be the big changes, you reckon?
I ideally would like for, my student support program, I want it to become a hub, rather than, at the moment, we've just really launched. It's a space for students to go to ask questions of the champions. If they've got a they want a quick answer, or, you know, they might have submitted an email, but, you know, they just want to know if they've sent that email to the right place. That's really what it is at the moment for us. But in 3 years, I want it to be a community and a hub and a space, not just to chat with mentors, but a space to get information, a space to have seminars and information sessions. You know, we have a whole lot of great resources available in our faculty and in our university. And I think bringing them all into this one space, so our international students know that this is the only place that they need to go to get the support that they need. You know, we have a fantastic employability team who have specific employability resources for our international students who will be facing different situations than our domestic students. They'll be dealing with visas and work rights and all of that sort of unique, challenging stuff. I want Vygo to be a place that they can go to attend a seminar or get the resources to help with that sort of information. And I guess in addition to that, I want it to be a place that they can go to from the absolute word go. So once they've accepted their place here at UQ, I think there's no time like once you've got an offer. Like you never have as many questions as you do before you start. Particularly when, as an international student, the education institution might be different. Our requirements might be different. Terminology, especially, is very different. And while you're unfamiliar with that, you have a lot of questions. So I want this to be their space of connectedness and comfort as soon as they are our students. Not once orientation starts, but as soon as they're our students. So yeah, that's where I see it going.
Yeah, I think my vision's completely aligned as well, and I think, you know, what you've said resonates on the, you know, there's little pockets of momentum that are created, you know, organically in a student's life cycle. You know, like the very first time they enroll, maybe the, you know, exam time, you know, like these things where there's energy that's coming in from the student, there's momentum coming in from the student, and if we can align our services with those little pockets, I think we can drive higher engagement. Where if we introduce them, you know, these services in a lull sometimes, then they've lost that space. Kind of like when you know, start of the year when you choose a new diet, and you know, you're more likely to stick to it then than you are if you just, you know, decide to start on a random Tuesday, you know.
Yeah, and that I see as part of the future plan as well, really looking at that key times when the students need support and, you know, targeting resources and targeting comms plans around those times, and to hopefully eventually get it to a place where students trust that hub and know when they need support, they know where to go without us having to say, hey, here's this thing for you. They can trust and know that thing's already there for them.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Well, I'll jump back to the question that I skipped over. Is there a particular success story or initiative or program that you and your team have been, you know, proud to be involved in?
This is just such a hard question to answer because there are just so many. You know, a student success story to me can be at the end of the orientation or an info session, a student can come up and ask a question and feel totally lost, and whether it's, you know, me or one of our academics in the room or whoever it is that can answer that question and listen to that student, to me, that's as simple as a student success story has to be. It's providing the support and letting that student know that they matter. But then, of course, you know, there are so many big initiatives that we've sort of been involved with. One of my proudest ones is within the School of Information Technology and Electrical Engineering here. We launched quite a large student mobility program in the New Colombo Plan funding, and we sent a group of students to China for a 4-week innovation and technology program, and just being the one to establish that first group of students. It's in its 5th year now. Well, should be its 5th year if they were traveling. And it's sort of doubled in the amount of students that are going. And just having the feedback from this group of students, attending an opportunity that was provided to them by the university and the school, and all the excellent feedback that came back from that. Even, we had a couple of things go wrong on that trip. One of our poor students had a collapsed lung, and navigating all of that and getting all of our students back with great feedback, and then to keep working on the program for future years is something I'm quite proud of, to support and provide opportunities for students that I hope will, be of benefit in their careers and their lives, and even if it's just a happy memory of their time at university.
Oh, well, one of my best memories of university was when I got to do a month over in Tianjin, and so did my co-founder Joel. And that just changed my perspectives on everything. I was a domestic student, and then suddenly I was forced to be an international student.
Yes.
And I tell you what, I developed a lot of sympathy for international students, because I had no idea what was going on around me. I could barely keep up with my timetable, let alone engage in anything outside of that, because I didn't, it wasn't my first language or anything like that. But it was a trial by fire, and that's some of the lessons and perspectives out of that is something that will stick with me forever, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those programs are powerful. Okay.
Yeah.
This is my favorite question. What's a common misconception that you hear within the student experience or student success space?
This one was hard for me to answer as well. In international student support, there are a lot of misconceptions, particularly that are sometimes quite negative, and can be quite hurtful, and separating in nature, I suppose, when it comes to things like language, and wanting to fit in and be involved and all of that sort of stuff, which I think is not really just a feature of a university. I think it's a function of culture, unfortunately, and something that's probably seen around the world. But separate to that, I would say that students don't want to be involved is a big misconception. When you talk about like establishing a mentor program, you're always going to get the question, oh, well, who's going to be your mentors? Students aren't going to want to do that. But overwhelmingly, there are so many wonderful students within, any program that care about other students and want to be champions. They want to get involved. They want to help, whether it's because they've had similar experiences and they, our program, it's international students mentoring international students, because it's important for me in this instance that our students have someone who can understand what it's like and how hard it is and can understand the kinds of questions they're going to have. And then because our champions are senior students, they can then help with that sort of belonging into the whole community. But there are so many students that just want to help. They care. And it's not just about getting an experience on their resume for them. It's really about helping other students. Some of my champions are involved in 2 to 3 other programs around the university, because that is something that they want to give their time to. And I would say that's one of the misconceptions, that students aren't going to want to be involved, when really you can find a lot of them. You've just got to find the right students.
100%. I remember turning to Joel, and this ultimately ended up with us starting Vygo. But at the end of our degree, I remember turning to Joel. It's like, man, I just learned so much about how to do university, and it took so long to learn these things and all the opportunities. I just want to go and tell a first year. I just want to shake them and say, these are all the things you can do, and this is how it works. And all the lessons that I just learned, the hard way. Here it is.
Yes.
I didn't shake any first year students.
Good.
Yeah. Okay, great. Okay, well, is there someone who inspires you in the student experience or student success space, or just generally in the education space? And why does that person come to mind?
This is going to be a really cliched answer, but that doesn't make it any less true.
Okay.
And it's my mum. My mum has been a primary school educator for 40 plus years, and she has showed me her whole life how valuable it is to care about students. I grew up in a very small town, and my mum taught and still teaches in communities outside of that town. So, for example, my primary school had 11 people in my grade.
Wow.
So it was a small school, and mum's been involved in those kinds of schools for her whole career. And I couldn't count the amount of times that I've been walking down the main street of town with mum, and a grown man or a grown woman has called out her name and come to give her a hug because she made an impact on their lives positively. And I know that's all she ever wanted to do. She just cared about the students. And to me, that's the whole point. You want to make a student's experience positive and happy and to make a difference in their experience. And she has shown me that time and time and time again.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. It's another thing you and I have in common. Primary school teaching mums. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're running out of time. I'm going to jump to the final question.
Yes.
What advice or encouragement would you give a student about to begin their journey at university? And maybe I'll put this as an international student, if that's okay.
To get involved. And it's as simple as that. Take advantage of any opportunity that is presented to you, whether it be a short-term mobility like we were just talking about, whether it be the opportunity to mentor or participate in a student society, just to get involved. Obviously, the key reason that our students are here is to learn and to get an education and a degree ultimately. But I think an education is so much more than what they'll learn in a classroom specifically, what they're being taught and examined on. I think an education is it's everything. It's meeting people, it's having experiences, and it's really getting involved. My biggest regret of my university experience is not studying abroad. For someone who's worked in international partnerships and student mobility for a long time, I really regret not studying abroad. And I would encourage any student to take advantage of those kinds of opportunities, because you have no idea where it will lead. Might lead you to a best friend or a husband, or to you, starting a company with one of your best mates from university. Like you never know what will lead to something. So say yes and get involved.
Awesome, very wise words, and I think we'll call it on that. So. Georgia, thank you so much for our 15-minute podcast, and thank you for having coffee with me today and sharing your stories, your advice, your visions. And for everybody who is listening to this in post, thank you for listening. If you would like to check out more episodes that we have or episodes that are upcoming, please head to the Vygo LinkedIn page or to the vygoapp.com website. It's all there. And thank you very much. Thank you, Georgia, for coming.
Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
Appreciate it. Bye.
See ya.